In a quiet, small village in Nagaland, there lived a hardworking farmer named Ato. Ato was known for his corn farm, the pride of his village, with tall green stalks that seemed to touch the sky. But one morning, Ato walked to his field only to find a disturbing sight. Almost all his corn had been eaten, but not in the way that animals usually nibble. Instead, each ear of corn had large, deep bites taken out of it, and to make it even stranger, all the half-eaten corn was piled up neatly in one place. Nearby he noticed a huge pile of dung, too large for any animal he knew of. It was as if a massive creature had feasted on his crop and left only strange signs behind. Confused and angry, Ato couldn't shake off his curiosity. What kind of creature would do this? He wondered aloud. Determined to find out, he made a plan. That evening, Ato sat by the fire, sharpening his best spear until its point gleamed in the light. After an early dinner, he headed to his field, hiding himself among the corn, clutching his spear tightly, ready to catch whatever beast had ruined his farm. Hours passed in silence as Ato lay waiting, the moon casting shadows over the field. Just when he began to think he might see nothing, he heard it, a soft rustling, then the crunching sound of something biting into his corn. Peering through the stalks, he spotted a dark figure moving slowly. It was larger than any animal he'd ever seen, and its movements were strange, almost human-like. Heart pounding, Ato lifted his spear, took careful aim, and with all his strength threw it toward the dark figure. There was a loud thud, then silence. Ato crept forward, expecting to see a wild boar, a bear, or perhaps a deer, but as he got closer his blood ran cold. Lying there in the moonlight was not a wild animal, but a creature unlike anything he'd ever seen. It was a Bigfoot, massive with thick hair covering its body, large hands, and a face that looked oddly human. Shocked and filled with fear, Ato backed away, his hands shaking. He hurried back to his house, his mind spinning with what he had just done. The next morning, Ato went straight to the oldest man in the village, a wise elder who knew all the ancient legends. When Ato told him the story, the old man looked at him with wide, serious eyes. "You've made a grave mistake, Ato," he said. "The Bigfoot has a family, and they will surely come for revenge." "What can I do?" Ato asked, his voice filled with panic. The old man thought for a moment, then replied, "You must cut out the tongue of the Bigfoot you killed and take it to the noisy river. The sound of the river will drown out any words if it tries to call to its family. This may keep them from finding you." Desperate, Ato followed the old man's instructions. He returned to the field, his heart racing as he cut out the Bigfoot's tongue, then hurried to the river and threw it into the fast-moving water. Satisfied that he had done all he could, he returned home and tried to sleep. Somehow, his family managed to trace him by his scent. Late at night, as Ato lay in bed, strange sounds began outside his house. It started with light scratching, growing louder and more frantic as the night went on. It was as if something huge was scraping against the walls, and Ato could hardly breathe, frozen with fear. The scratching goes on, waking him up the whole night. As the sun began to rise, the scratching stopped, but not without one final sign. His favourite pig was gone, and the Bigfoot had eaten all his passion fruit from the vines near his home. The next morning, Ato returned to the old man, his face pale and exhausted. When the old man heard what had happened, he looked even more serious. "They have traced you and they won't stop, Ato," he said. "They usually return, night after night, until a sacrifice is made." That night, Ato closed all his doors and window. He could barely hold his eyes open, but as darkness fell, the sounds returned, louder and more terrifying than before. The Bigfoot began poking long, hairy fingers through the cracks and openings of his house, testing the walls as if looking for a way inside. Ato was filled with terror. Finally, in a moment of desperation, he threw open a window and tossed out a rooster, shouting, "Take this as a sacrifice and leave me in peace." Instantly, one of the hands snatched the rooster and disappeared into the night. The scratching stopped, and silence fell over his house. From that day on, Ato never went to his farm alone, always bringing others with him, and he never again ventured into the fields after dark. The memory of that terrifying creature, the Bigfoot, stayed with him forever, and the villagers often spoke of Ato's encounter as a warning, reminding everyone to respect the mysteries of the forest and the creatures within. The elder in my village says there are certain types of people who turn into Bigfoot, usually during corn season, and eat all the corn. They have an unpleasant smell and like to scare people in the forest by throwing stones or shaking trees. They are fast and often whistle. The elders teach us that if we ever encounter one, we should just say, "You go your way, and I'll go mine," and they won't harm us. If you have a story to share about Bigfoot for the viewers, please share it in the comments section. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notification bell button.